Sudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Janmad Yasya Yato Niviyad Itaratas Charte Swavigyaswarat
Janmad Yasayatam Vayalitaratas Chati Swavigyaswarat
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyantiyat Surayaha
Tene Brahma Vridaya Adikavaye Mojanti Jasuraya
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha
Tejo Varimridan Jata Vinimayo Jatra Trisargo
Dhamma
Misha
Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi
Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O all-pervading personality of Godhead,
O all-pervading personality of God,
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
offer my respectful obeisances unto
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all causes,
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations,
He is directly and indirectly conscious for all manifestations,
and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is he who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma,
the original living being.
the original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of the water sent to fire, land sent to water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are
I
unreal.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who
Krishna,
is eternally existent in a transcendental abode,
which eternally exists in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma pujita kaitruvutra,
Dharma Prujita Kaitavutra,
paramo nirmatsiranam satam,
Paramo Nirmasharanam Sitam,
vedyam vastavam vastu,
Vedyam Vastavam Ashtavastu,
shivadam tapa trayomulanam,
Sivadam Taputrayomlanam,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krite,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni,
Kimva Purir Ishwaraha,
Kimva Peririshvara,
Sadyo Hridi Avurujyate Tra, Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat,
Kritivi Shushu Subhistat Kana,
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths,
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
It's the truth, the reality distinguished from
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity,
This is a beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva's maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need with the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nikama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpatoro kalitam palam,
sukamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
sukamakad with the driver sangitam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam malayam,
pipata Bhagavatam rasamayam,
muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha.
munahura sikabu vibhavaka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
Who expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
The mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit, the very
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
it emanated from the lips of Shishokadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this truth has become even more tasteful,
Therefore, this food has
Fruit,
become even more tasteful.
although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Srimbatam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Hiryam Takstohi Bhadrani Bhadani
Vidyanto Dhyabhadani
Vidunati Suhit Satam.
Vidinoti Surit Satam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly from the Bhagavad
is itself righteous activity.
Gita, self-righteous
And for one who hears about Krishna,
one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna will dwell within everyone's heart.
acts as a best wishing friend
Acts as the best Krishna
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the body who constantly engage in hearing with him.
Nastapresu bhadresu
Nasta Praishra Bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
bhaktir bhavati naistake.
Bhakti Bhavati Nasti.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As you hear most about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the
he
devotees,
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
Kamalobhadayasya
cheta etar anavidam
Chitaitar Navidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
Sitam Sarva Prasida.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance,
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasnana manas
bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga
bhagavad tattva vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
These impurities are wiped
the
away.
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
The candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
become enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understand the science of God.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granthi,
chidyante sarvasamsaya,
Siddhyante Sarva Samsaya,
siyante chasya karmani,
Siddhyante Satya Karma,
justa evat manishware.
Yuta Evatmani Ishvara.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
That's the Bhakti Yoga service the heart of material
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
affection.
understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
By hearing from Krishna, from his words in Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science of Krishna.
one understands the science.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 24. Visesas tasya deho yam stavistascha staviyasam yatredam vijayate vishwam bhutam bhavyam bhavachchatat. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal world, phenomenal material world, as a whole, is the personal body of the Absolute Truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Anything, either material or spiritual, is but an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 13:13, actually it's 13:14, the omnipotent Lord has his transcendental eyes, heads, and other bodily parts distributed everywhere. He can see, hear, touch, or manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, for he is present everywhere as the supersoul of all infinitesimal souls, although he has his particular abode in the absolute world. The relative world is also his phenomenal representation, because it is nothing but an expansion of his transcendental energy. Although he is in his abode, his energy is distributed everywhere, just as the sun is localized as well as expanded everywhere, since the rays of the sun, being non-different from the sun, are accepted as expansions of the sun disk. In the Vishnu Purana 1:22-52, it is said that as fire expands its rays and heat from one place, similarly the Supreme Spirit, the personality of Godhead, expands himself by his manifold energy everywhere and anywhere. The phenomenal manifestation of the gigantic universe is only a part of his Virat body. Less intelligent men cannot conceive of the transcendental all-spiritual form of the Lord, but they are astounded by his different energies, just as the Aborigines are struck with wonder by the manifestation of lightning, a gigantic mountain, or a huge expanded banyan tree. The Aborigines praise the strength of the tiger and the elephant because of their superior strength, energy and strength. The Asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Yes. The Asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Although the Lord incarnates and exhibits his uncommon strength and energy, and although he is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by learned scholars and saints like Vyasa, Deva, Narada, Asita, and Devala in the past, and by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, as also by the Acharyas like Sankara, Ramanuja, Madhava, and Lord Sri Chaitanya in the modern age. The Asuras do not accept any evidential proof from the revealed scriptures, nor do they recognize the authority of the great Acharyas. They want to see with their own eyes at once. Therefore, they can see the gigantic form of the Lord as Virat, which will answer their challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength like that of the tiger, elephant, and lightning, they can offer respect to the Virat Rupa, Lord Krishna. By the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Rupa for the Asuras. Lord Krishna, by the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Rupa for the Asuras. A pure devotee of the Lord, being unaccustomed to looking into such a mundane, gigantic form of the Lord, requires special vision for the purpose. The Lord, therefore, favored Arjuna with special vision for looking into his Virat Rupa, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Virat Rupa of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for the unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, and so mislead the general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the cheap incarnation to exhibit his Virat Rupa and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Rupa event manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheist and a favor for the Asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their hearts in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. So again, Prabhupada is now developing more thoroughly his project of preaching to two classes of people, the atheists and the impersonalists. And of the impersonalists, there's two types. There's the genuine impersonalists, and there's the Mayavadi nonsense impersonalists. So it's very good to see this what you would call clear delineation of who is the public that's being addressed by this understanding of the Virat Rupa. So the materialistic atheists, the empiricists means they only accept knowledge through their imperfect senses. That's an empiricist. Then there's rationalists. also, and so many other categories of people that speculate. But anyway, the majority of people are empiricists. They only accept what they can see, hear, touch, smell, taste. And anything beyond the jurisdiction of their senses, they reject, because they say, well, we can't establish it scientifically. We can't measure it, we can't see it, therefore it doesn't exist for us. But actually, many things exist that they can't see, they can't touch, they can't measure. One of those things are electromagnetic waves. 150 years ago, if I told someone there are such things as electromagnetic waves that we can't see, but they carry images and voices, they would say, you're crazy. But today, they can't say you're crazy. They admit that there are such things. And then, if 150 years ago I told someone, you know, we can, one of these days we'll be flying through the air like birds, they'd say, oh, I don't believe that. It's not possible. We're not birds. Well, that's true. We're not birds. But through aerodynamics, scientists have learned how birds fly, and they've imitated that mechanically. Okay, so there are things that people can't see, but they accept today as existing. So that finishes that myth of empiricism. There are many things that we don't see, we might not even be able to measure exactly, but they exist anyway. Okay, so this strategy of preaching to empiricists, atheists, or to genuine impersonalists, or to the nonsense Mayavadi impersonalists, it's not just a tactic, it's a fact. And that's why Arjuna asked Krishna to show him his universal form. It wasn't that he wanted to see the universal form, but he knew that in the future there would be a whole class of atheists and impersonalists and Mayavadis who, how can you talk to these people? Well, here's one way, through the tactic of explaining the universal form, as if they don't want to meditate on Krishna or Rama or Narayana, they can meditate on the universal form, which is explained rather in detail in the 11th chapter, and before that, the 7th and 10th chapter also gives detailed explanation of how to see Krishna in the material world, or through the material energy, which is also Krishna's energy. And that's another thing we have to realize as devotees. Everything we see in this world is a combination of matter and spirit. It's not exactly a combination, but these two things exist side by side everywhere in the material world. So anything you see is going to be, any living body that you see is definitely some type of combination of matter and spirit. And everything else is made of matter and spirit. Either the spirit in the form of the jiva, or spirit in the form of Paramatma, right? Paramatma is present in every atom and in the heart of every living entity. Jiva is only present in his limited body. So everything we see is a combination of matter and spirit. So in the 11th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna that he says, but you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. And Prabhupada explains, a pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except his form with two hands. A devotee must see his universal form by his grace, not with the mind, but with spiritual eyes, to see the universal form of Krishna, Arjuna is told not to change his mind, but his vision. The universal form of Krishna is not very important. That will be clear in subsequent verses. Yet, because Arjuna wanted to see it, the Lord gives him the particular vision required to see that universal form. Devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by a godless display of opulences. The playmates of Krishna, the friends of Krishna, and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulences. They are so immersed in pure love that they do not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the boys who play with Krishna are all highly pious souls, and after many, many births, they are able to play with Krishna. Such boys do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They take him as a personal friend. Therefore, Sukadeva Goswami recites this verse. Itam satam brahma sukham nubhritya tasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya srisatanam naradarakena sakam vijaru kritapunya punja. Here is the Supreme Person who is considered the impersonal Brahman by great sages, the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotees, and a product of material nature by ordinary men. Now, these boys, who have performed many, many pious activities in their past lives, are playing with that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:12-11. The fact is that the devotee is not concerned with seeing the Virat Vishwarupa, the universal form, but Arjuna wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statements so that in the future people could understand that Krishna is not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually presented himself as such to Arjuna. Arjuna must confirm this because Arjuna is the beginning of the parampara. Now this is an interesting point right there. It says he's the beginning of the parampara. So one devotee named Rupanuga asked Prabhupada a question back in 1969, and he said, how come there's such big gaps in the disciplic succession? You know, like, for example, it jumps from Vyasadeva to Madhavendra Puri, to Madhavacharya. That's like at least over close to 3,000 years in time difference. Well, when Prabhupada begins to answer it by first saying that Arjuna is not in the list because he was not an initiator guru. He was a shiksha guru. Now, that's an amazing statement right there. But here he's saying that it says the fact that the devotee is not concerned with seeing the Vishwarupa, the universal form, but Arjuna wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statements so that in the future people could understand that Krishna not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually presented himself as such to Arjuna. Arjuna must confirm this because Arjuna is the beginning of the parampara system. Well, parampara system existed before Arjuna also, but Krishna says that by the time of Arjuna, the system was broken, and therefore he had to reestablish it, right? So how does he reestablish it? He chooses someone to speak to. Like previously he spoke to Vivaswan, right? More than 120 years ago. And then again, 2,500 years ago, he spoke to Manu. He spoke to Ikshvaku, is it Manu or Ixvaku? I have to think about that. And then Ixvaku is the first king of the solar dynasty in which Lord Ramachandra appeared. And then he speaks to, he spoke to Vivaswan first, then to Manu, and then to Ixvaku, and then to Arjuna, 5,000 years ago. Okay. And it says here in the 4th chapter, 3rd verse, in the purport, it says, there are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science, owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great, mysterious science. Okay, so Arjuna accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And any commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of the great science. This great science. The demoniac, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers from the path of Krishna's instruction. Here's a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, so Arjuna is, in this sense, the beginning of the parampara in modern times, because it was broken and Krishna had to reestablish it. Okay. So those who are actually interested in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and who follow in the footsteps of Arjuna should understand that Krishna not only theoretically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually revealed himself as the Supreme. The Lord gave Arjuna the necessary power to see his universal form because he knew that Arjuna did not particularly want to see it, as we have already explained. So, okay, so this is very important information because today, if someone claims that they are Krishna or God or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have a legitimate right, just like Arjuna did 5,000 years ago, to ask that person to manifest their universal form. And if they say, well, you don't have the eyes to see it. Well, but Krishna said the same thing to Arjuna and gave him the eyes to see it. Okay? So that this person should do the same thing. If you humbly ask that person, please show me universal form as Krishna showed Arjuna, and they give you some phony reason why they can't, then you know they're not God. Anyway, if they seen the universal form is described in detail in the 11th chapter. So whatever they may show you, it has to correspond to what Krishna showed Arjuna. Okay? So it says, Arjuna sees everything in the universe. Therefore he sees Brahma, who is the first creature in the universe, and a celestial serpent upon which the Garbhodaksha Vishnu lies in the lower regions of the universe. This snake bed is called Vaisuki. There are also other snakes known as Vasuki. Arjuna can see from the Garbhodaksha Vishnu up to the topmost part of the universe on the lotus flower planet where Brahma, the first creature of the universe, resides. That means that from the beginning to the end, everything could be seen by Arjuna, who was sitting in one place on his chariot. This was possible by the grace of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So whoever claims, oh yeah, I am God, I am the present avatar of God, blah, 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 you can ask them, show me your universal form. And if they can't do it, or if they show something nonsense that doesn't correspond to what's here in the Bhagavad Gita, you can say, look, you're not God. You're some imposter. Okay, so, and because it was understood that in Kali Yuga there would be many imposters. In fact, in the 11th chapter, 3rd verse, in purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a criterion, for in the future there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnations of God. The people, therefore, should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claim to the people. So now we see there's several very important reasons why Krishna has this Virat Rupa, or this universal form that encompasses everything material. And by the way, it not only encompasses everything material, but it goes way beyond that also, the universal form. It's not simply, it's encompassing the material nature. It goes beyond that also. Okay, so yeah. So this Virat Rupa of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for that unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord and so mislead the general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the cheap incarnation to manifest his Virat Rupa and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Rupa manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheist and a favor for the asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their hearts in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. Wow, so there's something very important here also. It says a challenge to the atheists and a favor for the asuras. Why does it say a favor for the asuras? Asuras are people that don't believe in God. Well, it's for both. One is a challenge and one is a favor. Both of them can become devotees if the devotee can articulate the and explain the universal form and help them meditate on the material form of Krishna in the material world, so that they gradually develop faith that Krishna is a person and not simply an it or a force. So the atheists, it says here, let's see, challenge to it. So there, atheists are people that don't believe in God, and the asuras are people who insult God and say very nasty things. So the asuras are the Mayavadis, and the atheists are the can be the genuine impersonalists or the materialistic empiricists. Okay? So they're talking about two classes. Now this is also explained somewhere else, the same point, where it says, one second, let me find that. Yeah, this is explained when Lord Chaitanya is explaining to Bhaktisananda Saraswati and the thousands of sannyasis. So, yes, so in the Adi Lila, chapter 7, again, okay, let me read this a little bit and then we'll come to this point. Yesterday we were explaining how Lord Chaitanya was speaking very nicely to Prakasananda Saraswati and explaining to him what his guru, Ishwarapuri, had taught him about chanting Hare Krishna and not giving so much importance to study of Vedanta. And Prakasananda Saraswati was trying to impress upon him that he shouldn't waste his time in chanting, he should study Vedanta. And so at one point, Lord Chaitanya starts saying some really, amazing things by explaining the symptoms of someone who was actually a lover of Krishna and has attained the highest pinnacle of God consciousness. And it says, when one actually develops love of Godhead, he naturally sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes chants, and sometimes runs here and there, just like a madman. And then he says, perspiration, trembling, standing on end of one's bodily hairs, tears, faltering voice, fading complexion, madness, melancholy, patience, pride, joy, and humility. These are various natural symptoms of ecstatic love of Godhead, which causes a devotee to dance and float in an ocean of transcendental bliss while chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So that's why Prabhupada says that this dancing is also scientific. It's described. And this chanting is also scientific. It's described that these are transcendental symptoms of a pure devotee, or what's called ashaya suddhi, perfection of existence. And it says, sometimes a person thus melts and manifests these transcendental symptoms, yet at the same time is not well behaved in his personal transactions. This indicates that he has not yet reached complete perfection in devotional life. In other words, a devotee who dances in ecstasy, but after dancing and crying appears to be attracted to material affairs, has not yet reached the perfection of devotional service, which is called ashaya suddhi, or the perfection of existence. One who attains the perfection of existence is completely averse to material enjoyment and engrossed in transcendental love of Godhead. It is therefore to be concluded that the ecstatic symptoms of ashaya suddhi are visible when a devotee's service has no material cause and is purely spiritual in nature. These are the characteristics of transcendental love of Godhead, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-2-6. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yatu bhakti rohoksache, and so forth. That religion is best which causes its followers to become ecstatic in love of God, that is unmotivated and free from material impediments, for this alone completely satisfies the self. So we can see that Vaikuntha is a place for formal worship of the Lord, but Goloka is a place where this unfettered and unalloyed love of Krishna can be expressed without any limitations and without even following any rules and regulations, because there's only pure love for the Lord. So then Ishwarapuri tells Lord Chaitanya, it is very good, my dear child, that you have attained the supreme goal of life by developing love of Godhead. Thus, you have pleased me very much, and I am very much obliged to you. Okay. So, it's very rare that a person attains such a position like this. And in fact, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, even at the expense of all the properties, temples, and mattas that I have, if I could convert even one person into a pure devotee, my mission would be fulfilled. Well, he did that. Srila Prabhupada was that one person who had complete faith in the instructions of his guru. And Prabhupada says, it is very difficult, however, to understand the science of Krishna. What to speak of developing love of Godhead? Therefore, if by the grace of Lord Chaitanya and the spiritual master, a disciple attains the standard of pure devotional service, the spiritual master is very happy. The spiritual master is not actually happy if the disciple brings him money, But when he sees that a disciple is following the regulative principles and advancing in spiritual life, he is very glad and feels obliged to such an advanced disciple. Okay, so it's a very rare thing. But it's possible for everyone if we strictly follow instructions of Shiksha and Diksha gurus that are simply repeating the instructions given by Krishna and the Acharyas. And we take to this chanting very seriously, then it becomes easy. Tarantite, it becomes easy to attain this, what is almost impossible for ordinary people to attain. So then Ishwara Puri says, look, my dear child, he's speaking to Lord Chaitanya, you continue to dance, chant, and perform Sankirtan in association with devotees. Furthermore, and this is what we should really think about, go out and preach the value of chanting Krishna Nama. For by this process, you will be able to deliver all fallen souls. So therefore, there's what's called a Bhajananandi and a Gostyanandi. The Bhajananandi is someone who's concerned mostly with his own personal liberation. And therefore, he or she stays in a private place and chants most of the time. But the Gostyanadi goes out on Sankirtan and preaches so that many people can go back to Godhead. So there's a major difference there. And the outstanding example of the Gostyanandi is Prahlad Maharaj. And he says, Navodvijay para duratyaya vaitaranyas. My dear Lord, I have no problems and want no benediction from you because I am quite satisfied to chant your holy name. This is sufficient for me because whenever I chant, I immediately merge in an ocean of transcendental bliss. I only lament to see others bereft of your love. They are rotting in material activities for transient material pleasure and spoiling their lives, toiling all day and night, simply for sense gratification, with no attachment for love of Godhead. I am simply lamenting for them and devising various plans to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. 7th canto, 9th chapter, 43rd verse. So Prahlad is a perfect example of the Gostyanadi. He has no problem for himself. He is chanting all the time, and he's meditating on Krishna. But it hurts him to see the state of the general population who are wasting their time chasing after money and sense gratification. And therefore, he feels impelled to go out and preach. And he's a preacher. And that's why his father tried to kill him, because he was preaching to his schoolmates. Every time the teachers would leave the room, the classroom, he would get up and start preaching to them. Look, guys, don't waste your life. Life is very short. And we should start, even at this young age of 5, 6, 7 years old, we should chant Hare Krishna and develop Krishna consciousness. We don't know when we're going to die. Let's be serious about this life. The purpose of life is to go back to Godhead, to become Krishna conscious always. So he was preaching very actively, even though he was in a kindergarten, right? So then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, a person who has attracted the attention of the spiritual master by his sincere service likes to dance and chant with similarly developed Krishna conscious devotees. The spiritual master authorizes such a devotee to deliver fallen souls in all parts of the world. Those who are not advanced prefer to chant the Hare Krishna mantra in a solitary place. Such activities constitute, in the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a type of cheating process in the sense that they imitate the activities of exalted personalities like Haridas Thakur. One should not attempt to imitate such exalted devotees. Rather, everyone should endeavor to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all parts of the world and thus become successful in spiritual life. One who's not very expert in preaching may chant in a secluded place, avoiding bad association, But for one who is actually advanced, preaching and meeting people who are not engaged in devotional service are not disadvantages. A devotee gives the non-devotees his association, but is not affected by their misbehavior. Thus, by the activities of a pure devotee, even those who are bereft of love of Godhead get a chance to become devotees to the Lord one day. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur advises that one discuss the verse in Srimad Bhagavatam beginning, Naitat Samacharej Chatu Manasapi Pi Anishwara, 10:33:30, and the following verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-255. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatar Ham Upayanjita Yunjita Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta Vairagyam Uchite. One should not imitate the activities of great personalities. One should be detached from material enjoyment and should accept everything in connection with Krishna's service. This is an alternate translation of that verse. Okay, so we see that it's not only becoming Krishna conscious, it's not only becoming ecstatic in Krishna consciousness, it's also preaching. See? So, therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, Pran achiyar se hetu prachar. One who has life can go out and preach. Life means enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness and feeling the great dire necessity of helping people that are in complete ignorance, wasting their whole life just earning money and engaging in sense gratification. Therefore, the devotee feels impelled that I got to go out and I have to talk to people. Just like yesterday, one young boy who has a business, he delivers things in a big truck. He came and delivered some, you saw him, right? Black soil. So I got to talking to that boy yesterday, and I asked him, I said, where'd you get this name? You know, his name is Igor. I said, where'd you get that name from? You know, not too many Americans have a name. He said, well, I was born in Moldavia. Oh, Moldavia, interesting. I said, I've been there. He said, you've been there? Well, I've been really close. Moldavia is right next to Romania, and I've been right on the border of Moldavia. He said, wow. He said, you're the first person I ever met in the United States who said they've been to Moldavia. So then we got to talking. He was a really nice boy. When I say boy, he's a man, but he's young, relatively young. And he's got this big truck that he bought. He told me he paid $36,000 for that truck. And he delivers things, you know. So he delivered, black soil for us yesterday. So talking to him, I was thinking to myself, this is a nice young kid. So I invited him to have prasadam. And he came and he ate a big bowl of soup, and we got to talking a lot, you know. And I explained, you know, I'm a vegetarian, things like that. And then I also told him I'm a priest. And, you know, he was just like, wow, 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 every time I said something. So it was a real pleasure talking to him, you know, and and we became friends. Now I'm going to invite him back several more times because he gave a really good price also for delivering. I've never seen a price like that before. But there's so many people out there, right? They're just waiting to be introduced to Krishna consciousness. But we have to go out and find them because they're waiting. They're like easy targets. You know, I mean, there are a lot of heavy demons out there, but this boy was definitely like a devotee. Definitely like that. He just needs that little bit of inspiration. And therefore, going out on Sankirtan is very important. Meeting people. It doesn't matter. You can meet people on Sammamish Park. You can meet people on 1420 Southeast, 228th Avenue. You can meet people at the Safeway. You can meet people in Apna Bazaar. You can meet people everywhere, right? And the people are coming to us, actually, you know, coming to the temple. We should be preaching. Now, our committee Our welcoming committee has got to start. It's got to start. We have to start greeting the people and making friends with them, even inviting them to your house for prasadam, to get even closer to them, and give them a chance to become Krishna conscious, to see the glories of chanting Hare Krishna. We have to do this. This is a rare opportunity. So many people are coming to this temple, even in this COVID, and then many of them are new people. And even the regular people, we have to be kind to them. You have to remember their children's birthdays and things like that, and give them gifts. You have to have your pile of children's books on the table, right? And besides besides the other devotees that are there for the sign in and the temperature wiping and the alcohol, that's not greeting people. That's right. So we have to be there. Every Saturday and Sunday and every day of the weekend and the weekdays when the public is coming to the temple, we have to be there to welcome them, to make friends with them, to make them feel as if they're part of the family. That's the whole point. They're part of the family of devotees. Okay, so I'm going to just find this thing I've been looking for. So Lord Chaitanya starts saying some really amazing things. He says, I firmly believe in these words of my spiritual master, and therefore I always chant the holy name of the Lord alone and in the association of devotees. That holy name of Lord Krishna sometimes causes me to chant and dance, and therefore I chant and dance. Please do not think that I intentionally do it. I do it automatically. See, this is the point. He's not putting on a show. He's not a showman, right? Oh, people are coming. Okay, let me start dancing now. No. It's happening automatically out of pure love for the Lord. And so, let me see where this one, let me just jump to this one point I wanted to make. And we'll pick up from that point tomorrow. Huh? 92? No, that was, what I'm looking for is in verse 92. Is that what you're saying? Yesterday. Yeah, okay, but what I'm looking for is not 92. Yeah, okay. So, in verse 99, in the purport, it says, the Mayavadi sannyasis met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Varanasi to criticize the Lord regarding his participation in the Sankirtana movement, which they did not like. This demoniac nature of opposition to the Sankirtan movement perpetually exists. In other words, it exists today also. As it existed in the times of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, similarly, it existed long before that, even in the time of Prahlad Maharaj. He used to chant in Sankirtan, although his father did not like it. And that was the reason for the misunderstanding between the father and son. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:15, the Lord says, Namam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama mayaprata jnana asaram bhavam asritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Now here comes the first shock. The Mayavadi sannyasis are asuram bhavam asrita, which means that they have taken the path of the asuras, demons. Okay? These are the hardcore Mayavadis. They are demons. Right? The Mayavadis say that the ultimate source of everything is impersonal. And in this way, they deny the existence of God. Saying that there is no God is direct denial of God, and saying that God exists but has no head. It's okay. So up to that point, he's talking about those hardcore Mayavadis that basically say there's no God. So those are demons. Okay. Now he switches. He said, saying that there is no God is direct denial of God. Okay? So up to that point, they are asuras. Now he starts on another thread. He says, and saying that God exists, but has no head, legs, or hands, and cannot speak, hear, or eat, is a negative way of denying his existence. A person who cannot see is called blind. One who cannot walk is called lame. One who has no hands is called helpless. One who cannot speak is called dumb. And one who cannot hear is called deaf. The Mayavadi proposition. Now, these are Mayavadis who are not demons. Right? They say there is a God, but it is impersonal. They say he, but actually it is impersonal. A person who cannot see is called blind, and so forth. The Mayavadi's proposition that God has no legs, no eyes, no ears, no hands is an indirect way of insulting him by defining him as blind, deaf, dumb, lame, helpless, etc. Therefore, although they present themselves as great Vedantists, they are factually Mayaprita Jnana. So, Mayaprita Jnana means those whose intelligence has been basically bewildered or destroyed. In other words, they seem to be very learned scholars, but the essence of their knowledge has been taken away. So there's two levels here of the Mayavadis. One that says there's no God, period. And the other one, it says there's a God, but he doesn't have head, leg, and so forth, right? So they deny his personality. So the ones who are hardcore, they are asura, they're demons. And the ones who are soft-core, but still, atheistic, they are the ones that say there is a God, but he's impersonal. Okay. Okay, so then there's another one. How about the ones that say that they are God? They're demons. They're also demons. And how about the Buddhists? Well, the Buddhists, they say that either there's nothing in the ultimate goal, or there's the flip side of material nature. It's where there's avyakta, chaos. So, the unmanifest form of matter. So they're just bereft of knowledge, unfortunately. Yeah. So then Prabhupada says, impersonalist Mayavadis always try to defy Vaishnavas because Vaishnavas accept the Supreme Personality as the supreme cause and want to serve him, talk with him, and see him, just as the Lord is also eager to see his devotee and talk, eat, and dance with them. These personal exchanges of love do not appeal to the Mayavadi sannyasis. But Lord Chaitanya came, he is God himself, and he danced and chanted with his devotees and took prasadam with his devotees. You see? So what the Mayavadis are doing, they're trying to cut off all the ecstasy in spiritual life through personal association with the Lord, either through chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra or associating with the Lord in his pastimes in the material world, or going back to Godhead and associating with the Lord. Okay, I'll stop right there, and we'll pick up on this again tomorrow. All this is about how to preach. How to preach. Because if you don't preach, you're just concerned about your own liberation. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not Lord Chaitanya's movement. His movement is not only to be perfect in every way, but to go out and preach. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, it says, books are the basis, and utility is the principle. Preaching is the essence. And what's the fourth one? Preaching is the essence. Books are the basis.
Utilities.
Utilities. I've said that. There's one.
Surely,
What?
preaching books are basis, preaching the essence.
Purity is the force. That's the one I forgot. Yeah. So preaching is the essence.
Maybe tomorrow, I think there was, we do have this verse, Mahajana Yanagatha Pantha, right? So, which is like follow the footsteps of the
Great devotees.
great devotees. And then there's